He parked his bike on the side of the street, near the bustling café where he always sat to think. The sun shone brightly, casting lively shadows across the pavement, but today felt different. He brushed a hand through his messy hair and leaned against the bike, sensing something in the air like the calm before a storm. As he looked around, people hurried past him, immersed in their own lives. Their laughter and chatter blended into a comforting hum, but he felt disconnected. He watched a woman in a red dress, her heels clicking on the sidewalk, and a group of kids chasing each other, their laughter ringing out like a bell. Life moved on, yet he felt stuck in a moment that wouldn't shift. He took a deep breath, shaking off those feelings. He had come here to clear his mind, to think about his future. But no matter how many times he approached the question, he always ended up walking down the same path, lost and uncertain. Today, like many days, he wanted to change that. Suddenly, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb, the engine purring softly like a cat. A man in a sharp suit hopped out, adjusting his tie with practiced ease. He opened the back door of the car with a smooth motion, and that's when the tension in the air shifted. A figure stepped out, and the sun cast a golden glow around them, making it hard to see clearly. But even from a distance, the energy radiating off this person was undeniable. He squinted, curiosity pulling him forward. Who was this person? A celebrity? A politician? There was something magnetic about the way they moved, as if the world paused to look. The passerby continued their hurried pace, but he couldn't tear his eyes away. A feeling welled inside him, a mixture of awe and yearning. The figure stepped fully into view, and he realized it was a woman, striking in her elegance. She glided towards the cafe, and he could see the confidence in her stride. People turned to glance at her, some offering quick smiles, others simply staring. She had a presence that stirred something within him, a spark of possibility. He decided to follow, his heart racing as he climbed off his bike. Maybe this was the moment he had been waiting for, a chance to connect with someone who seemed to know exactly who they were. He slid through the crowd, heart pounding like a drum, his nerves buzzing with excitement. As she reached the entrance of the cafe, she paused, glancing at her phone. He hesitated, unsure of what to do. Should he approach her? But just as quickly, doubt crept in. What if she brushed him off, or worse, didn't even notice him? He stood there, caught in a swirl of emotions, hope, fear, desire. Then out of nowhere, the sound of laughter pulled him back. He turned to see a familiar face, his childhood friend Sam, waving at him. Sam was the kind of friend who lit up a room, always ready with a joke or a smile. But even as they exchanged pleasantries, he couldn't shake the pull of the woman standing just a few feet away, a beacon of possibility. Sam asked, noticing his distracted expression. Yeah, just he hesitated, trying to explain a feeling he could barely understand. Sam raised an eyebrow, a knowing smile creeping across his face. You should go talk to her, he laughed nervously. Sam countered, his eyes sparkling with mischief. He felt his pulse quicken again. What if Sam was right? The woman seemed to embody everything he longed for: adventure, ambition, confidence. But the fear still lingered, wrapping around him like chains. Sam must have sensed it, because he slapped him on the back, urging him forward. Just go. With Sam's words ringing in his ears, he took a deep breath and squared his shoulders. He walked toward her, each step feeling like a battle. The noise of the cafe melted into the background, and all that existed was the space between them. He could see her concentrating on her phone, but when she looked up, their eyes locked. Hi, he managed, feeling a rush of warmth. Hi, she replied, her smile sparkling like the sun. It eased the tension in his chest, and for a moment he forgot all his worries. I'm sorry to interrupt, he said, stumbling over his words. She motioned to the empty seat across from her. His heart soared. He sat down, feeling an electric thrill run through him. They exchanged small talk, laughter bubbling between them like a fountain. Her name was Mia, and she was visiting the city for just a few days. She spoke with an energy that made every word feel alive. He couldn't believe how easy it was to talk to her, as if they had known each other forever. As their conversation flowed, he began to feel a change within himself. The nervous energy that had plagued him melted away, replaced by a warm confidence. They talked about travel, dreams, and their favorite bands, diving deeper with each passing moment. He shared his passion for biking, and she told him about her love for photography, her eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. Time slipped away. The world outside faded, and the cafe transformed into their own little universe. It felt like magic, and he couldn't help but wonder if any of this was real. But then came a moment that shifted everything. Mia's expression suddenly changed. She looked more serious, and he felt the atmosphere shift. You know, sometimes I think about what it means to really live, she said, her voice softer now. So many people go through the motions, but you can't let life just happen to you. You have to take risks. Her words resonated deep within him, awakening a part of him he had long ignored. He realized he had been allowing fear to hold him back, fear of failure, fear of rejection. But sitting here with her, he felt a glimmer of hope, the possibility to break free from those chains. He asked, his voice steady. Mia smiled, a hint of mischief in her eyes. I'm trying to. Every day is another chance to do something unexpected, like this trip. I didn't have a plan. In that moment, he felt a connection, the kind that ignites the flames of inspiration. Her courage ignited his long-dormant dreams, stirring a desire to chase after what truly mattered to him. "I want that too," he admitted quietly. As they spoke, laughter echoed between them once more, but this time it was paired with a deeper understanding. They shared stories of dreams unspoken and regrets left behind. The balance of light and weight in their conversation became a dance, a mixture of joy and vulnerability. But just as he began to imagine where this connection could lead, a shadow loomed over their table. The chauffeur was back, standing tall and poised. The regal stance that had caught his eye earlier now seemed imposing. "Mia, it's time to go," he said, his voice smooth but firm. Mia looked torn. "Just give me a few more minutes," she pleaded, her eyes darting between the chauffeur and him, a silent battle raging within her. The chauffeur glanced at him warily, as if assessing the situation. "We need to leave now." She sighed, clearly frustrated. He felt a pang in his chest, an unexpected sorrow creeping in. This moment was slipping away. Were they destined to meet only to part, like ships passing in the night? He took a breath, steadying himself against the backdrop of uncertainty. He asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "Miami," she replied, her smile bittersweet. "Wow," he said, feeling a mix of admiration and longing. "Maybe one day you'll come to see it," she said, her gaze locking onto his. For a fleeting moment, he imagined the two of them exploring new cities together, sharing countless adventures. But the urge to speak, to grasp this fleeting chance, wrapped his words in uncertainty. He couldn't let her leave without trying. "Mia," he said, leaning forward, "can I have your number?" Her eyes widened, and there was a momentary spark of surprise. She glanced at the chauffeur, who shifted impatiently. The weight of the choice hung in the air, thick and palpable. "Okay," she said, finally pulling out her phone. "I promise," he replied, relief flooding through him as she typed his number in. The tension dissolved slightly, but the urgency pressed on them like a weight. As she stood up, the atmosphere felt heavy with what could have been. "I hope to see you again," she said, her voice like a gentle breeze. And then she was gone, stepping confidently into the waiting car while he stood frozen, the world around him blurring into a haze. The chauffeur closed the door softly and the car pulled away, leaving him staring into the distance, grasping an unfamiliar feeling of hope mixed with uncertainty. He glanced down at his phone, his heart racing. There it was, a sliver of potential in the form of her name. He knew this was just the beginning. Today he found the courage to reach out and grasp something new, a step toward breaking free from the confines of his own fears. He turned back toward his bike, the sun now dipping low in the sky, casting a golden hue across the street. He took a deep breath, a smile creeping onto his face as he mounted his bike. Today felt like a door opening, an invitation to turn the page on his story. As he pedaled away, a new sense of purpose surged through him. The journey had just begun, and he was ready to ride full speed ahead, into his future, his dreams, and maybe, just maybe, back to Mia. He parked his bike on the corner of Avenue A, the familiar echo of the wheels skidding slightly against the asphalt. As he stepped off, his heart raced. Today felt different, like the air crackled with electricity. He adjusted his leather jacket and ran a hand through his messy hair, glancing down the street. It was just another Tuesday, shops buzzing, people bustling, but for him, this day held a promise he couldn't shake. There was a certain magic in the air, and he couldn't pinpoint why. Maybe it was the golden light spilling from the setting sun, painting everything in a warm glow, or perhaps it was the feeling that something monumental was about to happen. He took a deep breath, inhaling the aroma of freshly brewed coffee drifting from the cafe nearby. But before he could indulge in the moment, a sleek black limousine rolled up, cutting through the ordinary like a knife. The engine hummed softly, almost like a whisper beckoning him to look closer. He turned, curiosity piqued, just in time to see a somber-looking chauffeur step out. Dressed sharply in a tailored suit, the man moved with purpose, glancing around as if scanning a crowd, searching for something or someone. Before he could piece together what was happening, the chauffeur walked briskly to the back door of the limousine and opened it with an effortless flourish. The movement was so fluid, so practiced, that it sent a ripple of anticipation through him. He felt his heartbeat reverberate in his ears, a primal sense of intrigue pulling him closer. Who was in that car? As if the universe was weaving its narrative, a figure emerged from the shadows within the car. For a moment, the light cascaded around the person, and he could barely see the face. Standing tall, the shape exuded confidence. It felt as though the entire street paused in reverence, the honking horns of taxis skirting to silence in the background. And then she stepped fully into the light. A woman, her presence was magnetic. Dressed in a stunning cobalt blue dress that danced around her knees like waves in the ocean, her hair fell in soft curls framing her face perfectly. Her eyes sparkled, a rich chestnut hue that glimmered in the evening sun. She scanned the street with a quiet intensity, and in that fleeting moment their gazes locked, his stomach twisted, a blend of excitement and anxiety. This was unlike anything he had felt before. He felt a pull, a raw energy coursing through him. As quickly as their eyes met, she turned, walking away from him toward the cafe where the tantalizing aroma of coffee mingled with the chatter of life. Snapped back to reality. What was he doing just standing there? He had come here to feel alive, and now this opportunity blinked like a neon sign. Pushing the thoughts of self-doubt aside, he ran a hand over the handlebars of his bike, steeling himself as he embarked on the tentative steps toward her. He called out, his voice a tad sharper than intended. The words hung heavily in the air, mingling with the city's soundtrack. Wait, she halted, glancing over her shoulder, surprise etched across her face, but her expression softened into curiosity, a flicker of a smile dancing on her lips. She said, her voice like a melody breaking through the chaos around them. Sorry to bother you, he started, drawing closer, keeping his tone light even though his heart raced. I'm not sure if you remember me, but I was just... Hello, she repeated softly, tilting her head. Her smile sent a rush of warmth through him, like a jolt of caffeine straight to the veins. They stood there, a world apart yet inexplicably connected, as the noise of the city faded into the background. He couldn't help but notice how effortless she made everything seem. He asked, gathering courage from the way she seemed to lean into the conversation, genuinely intrigued. I'm here for a work event, she replied, waving her hand subtly as if pushing aside the idea of formality. But honestly, I needed a break from the whole business vibe. Sounds like a good plan, he said, feeling the warmth of connection growing stronger. Their conversation flowed like a river, easy and natural. As they stood together, he discovered her name, Catherine. She spoke of her work, her dreams, and her journeys. With each word, he felt the walls he had built around himself begin to crumble. It was liberating, revealing, and scary all at once. She asked, tilting her head as if trying to unlock the secrets locked inside him. He hesitated, a bubble of vulnerability surged in his throat. I love biking. She lit up then, her eyes sparkling with interest. Biking, that sounds exhilarating. Anywhere, just exploring. It's like therapy for me, he confessed with sincerity. But lately I've been trying to figure out what I really want to do. As he spoke, he caught a glimpse of recognition in her expression. I know that feeling all too well. Just then the air shifted again, heavier this time. They both turned to see the chauffeur approaching. His posture was stiff, his brow furrowed as he glanced at Catherine, then back at him, the tension between them palpable. Catherine's expression morphed into one of disappointment. Right, I know, she pleaded. His heart sank. He didn't want this moment to end. The magic they had found so effortlessly was slipping away like sand through fingers. The chauffeur stood firm, making it clear that time was a luxury he could not afford. She sighed, torn. He could see the struggle in her eyes, the clash between duty and passion, obligation and freedom. But she chose to look at him, her determination flickering like a candle in the wind. Listen, she said, stepping closer, I don't want to lose this. His breath caught. Yes, she said, her voice steady now. I want to keep talking. There was a fierce intensity in her gaze, and at that moment he knew that this was not just chance, it was destiny. They exchanged numbers, fingers brushing lightly as they did so. He felt electricity, a connection that tumbled out of the ordinary and into something extraordinary. Then time shifted again, her expression growing serious as the chauffeur shifted impatiently. I really have to go, she said, her voice thick with longing. I understand, he managed to say, a lump forming in his throat. She gave him a smile that seemed to light the world around them, a lingering warmth that seeped deep into his heart. With a quick wave, she stepped back. The chauffeur opened the door for her, and as she climbed into the back seat, part of him lingered on the stories yet to unfold. The door clicked shut, and with one last look, she met his eyes, a silent promise hanging in the air. The limousine pulled away, leaving him standing on the curb, feeling both exhilarated and achingly empty. His heart raced, caught in that brief, beautiful moment. He brushed a hand over his face, trying to gather his thoughts. As he mounted his bike, he could almost hear the whispers of what could have been swirling around him. But there was one thing he knew for certain. He wouldn't let this second chance slip through his fingers. Perturbed yet hopeful, he took off, the wind rushing past him as he pedaled faster, the city blurring into a whirl of color and life. Days passed, but the memory of Catherine lingered like an unfinished song. He checked his phone often, his heart leaping each time it buzzed, hoping it would be her. Each morning he felt the thrill of possibility, each night a lingering sense of emptiness. But he refused to surrender to despair. With renewed determination, he rode his bike through the city every day, feeling the sun warm his skin and the wheels beneath him sing their familiar tune. He poured his heart into biking, exploring new paths he had never taken before, leaving behind old routines. Each ride etched her memory deeper, stoking a fire within him to embrace not just adventure, but life itself. Finally, a week later, when the sun dipped low in the sky casting long shadows on the street, his phone vibrated in his pocket. He pulled it out, his heart racing as he opened the message. It was her, a simple text that read, "Hey, it's Catherine." His spirit soared. Without thinking, he replied immediately, his fingers flying across the screen. Absolutely. They arranged to meet at the very café where they had shared that electric moment, more than just a meeting place. It was a symbol of new beginnings, of untold stories waiting to unfold. That afternoon, as he approached the café, his pulse quickened. The world around him faded, and that familiar spark ignited again. Standing at the entrance, he spotted her right away, Catherine, looking radiant as ever. The moment their eyes met, a bright smile blossomed on her face. "Hey there," she said, her voice a gentle caress in the noise of the city. "Hey," he replied, trying to hold back the excitement surging through him. She laughed, and in that sound he felt something profound, something extraordinary yet simple, like two souls finding their way back home. As they settled into a cozy corner, sipping their drinks, they launched into deep conversation, time unfolding naturally around them as if they had known each other lifetimes instead of mere days. They shared dreams, fears, and stories of their lives, the laughter, the struggles, the moments of growth, each story woven into the fabric of their connection, building tension, opening doors of emotion that flowed freely. They delved deeper into their aspirations, thoughts flaring like fireworks illuminating the night sky. Eventually, Catherine leaned in closer, her eyes locking onto his. "You know," she said softly, "I've been thinking a lot about what it means to really live, to let go and experience life. Meeting you," he responded, feeling his heart thud with conviction. "I know what you mean. I realized that my bike isn't just a method to get around, it's a symbol of freedom of choice." And in that moment, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the world in hues of orange and pink, he understood that life isn't about waiting, it's about living. And here they were, two people taking steps toward the unknown, ready to embrace whatever came next. With laughter spilling between them and the comforting warmth of connection burning brightly, they shared a knowing smile. There, amidst the hum of the city, they found what they were both seeking, a kindred spirit, someone to ride alongside as they navigated the beautiful chaos of life. And that was just the beginning. He parked his bike against the weathered brick wall, the unmistakable sound of the kickstand clicking into place echoing in the quiet of the alley. The air was heavy, laced with the aroma of freshly baked pastries wafting from the cafe nearby. You wouldn't think much of it, just another day in a bustling city, a typical morning. But he felt it, the energy in the air crackled with possibility, like the tension before a storm. He pushed his helmet back, slicking his hair back as he glanced around. The alley was mostly empty, save for a few scattered trash cans and the distant chatter of people gathering at the cafe. He took a moment to breathe deeply, relishing the cool breeze. He loved this feeling, the rush after a ride, every sinew of his body awake and alive. Today was supposed to be like any other in his life, but deep down he sensed it was going to be different. As he stepped out of the alley, the sunlight illuminated the street, brightening the world around him. He turned his gaze toward the main road and froze. A sleek black limousine glided to a stop right in front of him, the glossy exterior gleaming like a polished gem. A hush fell over the street, and suddenly it felt like all eyes were drawn to the vehicle. He squinted, trying to peer inside, but the tinted windows were impenetrable. The chauffeur, dressed sharply in a fitted black suit, hopped out with the grace of someone who had rehearsed his role 1,000 times. He opened the rear door with a practiced precision, and that's when time seemed to slow. A figure emerged, stepping out of the car as if she were part of a movie scene meant to captivate. She was tall and striking, dressed in a flowy white dress that billowed slightly in the breeze. The sunlight caught her hair, throwing gold strands into a halo around her. He couldn't see her face yet, but there was something magnetic about her presence, an energy that made his heart thump louder in his chest. People buzzed around him, barely noticing the dramatic moment unfolding just a few feet away. The world continued to move, cars honking, street vendors shouting, but he stood still, captivated by the figure unfolding from the darkness of that limo. She took a step forward and their eyes locked. For just a moment it felt as if no one else existed. The noise around them faded into silence. He could see the spark in her eyes, a glimmer that hinted at a story yet to be told. Intrigue wrapped around him like a warm blanket, pulling him toward her. But then, as quickly as the connection ignited, she turned away, her attention drawn to a throng of people waiting at the cafe. The spell shattered, and he felt the sudden pang of realization. This moment was slipping through his fingers like grains of sand. Would he let it go? She paused and looked back, surprise etched on her face. "I'm sorry, but I couldn't help but notice," he started, his heart racing faster than it had all morning. "You just stepped out of a limousine." A soft laugh escaped her lips, bright like sunbeams. "You could say that." She gestured toward his bike, a casual question seeming layered with curiosity. "No place I'd rather be than here," he responded, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside him. "I'm just intrigued by the unexpected." There was a glimmer of something in her eyes, appreciation, perhaps. "You're not wrong," she said, taking a step closer, her presence warm and inviting. Time seemed to stretch as they exchanged glances, both aware that this could turn out to be one of those life-changing moments. He asked, his curiosity bubbling over. "I'm on a bit of an adventure," she confessed, looking both excited and a little nervous. "I was invited to a fundraising gala downtown and I'm just..." "Sounds glamorous," he said, trying to convey his admiration without sounding cliché. "But it seems like you're searching for something more than just a gala." She met his gaze, her expression growing serious. "Every day I ask myself what more there is to life," she admitted. As she spoke, he felt a connection deepening, like threads weaving them together in a tapestry of shared understanding. It was refreshing to find someone who, beneath the surface, felt just as restless as he did. "Life isn't just about attending events," he said, taking a chance. "It's about living, really living." Her eyes sparked again and she started sharing snippets of her life, places she had traveled, moments of joy and sadness, the little things that had shaped her into who she was. He listened intently, hanging on every word, not wanting to miss a single detail in what felt like a whirlwind of fate. "I once traveled to Japan by myself," she said, her cheeks flushing with excitement at the memory. "It was both terrifying and liberating. I found peace in the chaos and the cherry blossoms." Before he could respond, the chauffeur tapped his watch discreetly, an unyielding reminder that time was slipping away. The intensity in her eyes shifted momentarily, the urgency of reality creeping back in. "Looks like I'm needed," she said reluctantly, her smile dimming slightly. "But I really want to keep talking. This has been—" "You mean that?" he replied, his heart racing in his chest. "How about we grab coffee sometime?" A flicker of surprise passed over her face, quickly replaced by a smile that lit up her features. They exchanged numbers, fingers brushing lightly, and he felt a warmth in that brief connection. The world around them faded again, and in that moment he realized how powerful taking a chance could be, how it could lead to incredible discoveries. But just as the moment seemed secure, the chauffeur cleared his throat, urgency tinging the air. "We must go, man." She hesitated but nodded, glancing back at him, the urgency in her expression layered with a sense of regret. "I really hope to see you again," she said, her voice earnest. "I hope so too," he replied, trying hard to keep the moment alive. Their gazes lingered a second longer than necessary, a silent promise exchanged between them, and then she turned and walked back to the waiting chauffeur. He watched as she got into the back seat of the luxurious car, a mixture of exhilaration and despair flooding through him. The door closed with a whisper and the chauffeur slid into the front seat, their vehicle rolling away from the curb. He stood there for a moment, absorbing the rush of emotions, thrill, longing, hope. It felt surreal, like an experience out of a storybook. Yet in the whirlwind of feelings, he also felt a twinge of uncertainty. Would he really see her again? As he climbed back onto his bike, he let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm glow as he caught sight of himself in a shop window, stranger in the glass. But today something felt different. He was a man who had taken a chance, a man who had stepped into the unknown and embraced the unexpected. Days passed slowly, yet each tick of the clock echoed with anticipation. He found himself checking his phone obsessively, heart racing every time a message popped up. He found peace in biking through the city, letting the wind clear his thoughts, but Catherine lingered in his mind like a beautiful melody. Finally, a week later, as he pulled into a crowded park, he felt his heart leap at the sight of a notification. His hands trembled as he reached for his phone, opening a message with Catherine's name. A smile crept across his face as he replied, agreeing to meet that very afternoon. The sun seemed to shine brighter as he rode with purpose, every pedal stroke pushing his excitement higher. When he arrived at the café, now a familiar sight, he spotted her sitting at a small table outside, sunlight streaming around her like a golden halo. She looked radiant, her laughter ringing out into the air as she spoke to a friend. But when their eyes connected, it was as if the world fell away. She greeted, standing up enthusiastically. "Me too," he said, smiling back and sitting across from her, feeling like he was exactly where he was meant to be. "A bit of a whirlwind," she admitted, taking a sip from her coffee, "but I couldn't stop thinking about our conversation." Their conversation took off again, emotions flowing freely like ink on a blank page as they shared more stories, dreams, and fears. Each revelation stitched them closer together, a shared understanding blooming in the space between them. "You know," he said, leaning in as he spoke, "when I first saw you step out of that limo, I didn't just see someone glamorous, I saw someone searching for something." She nodded, her expression thoughtful. "I guess we all spend a lot of time searching for meaning, don't we?" In that moment, perched on the brink of connection, everything felt possible. The world around them spun and faded, but they held onto something real, a sense of belonging that transcended the ordinary. As they shared laughter and stories, the sun dipped low, changing the atmosphere as the light morphed into hues of gold and orange. But inside that cafe, the warmth they felt was ignited by their shared desire to live fully, to embrace whatever came next. Suddenly, Catherine glanced at her watch, a flicker of concern crossing her features. "I didn't realize how late it was." The weight of reality returned, and he felt a familiar pang of disappointment. She smiled softly, shaking her head. "As tempting as that sounds, I have commitments, but I want to continue this." "I wouldn't dream of it," he replied, his heart swelling with a mix of hope and apprehension. They wrapped up their time together, exchanging stories, laughter, and plans for the next meeting. As they stood up to say goodbye, a feeling of poignant finality washed over him. He held her gaze, wanting to imprint the moment in his memory. "Promise me this isn't just chance," he said, his voice steady but sincere. "I promise," she replied, her voice resonating with warmth. Watching her walk away, he realized how profound life could be, how unexpected encounters could spark change and connection. He mounted his bike, the world around him thrumming with life. With each turn of the pedals beneath him, the wind whispered tales of adventures yet to come, of possibilities stretching endlessly ahead. He rode home that evening, every stroke filling him with a sense of purpose he hadn't known he was missing. That quirky meeting, that moment when he decided to embrace the unexpected, had ignited a fire within him. He felt more alive than ever, ready to seize every opportunity, to chase every moment. Tomorrow would bring new adventures, new turns in the path, and he welcomed it all. He was no longer just a man who parked his bike and watched life go by. He was a man who dared to reach out, to take risks, and for that he felt an unquenchable sense of hope. This was just the beginning, and life was unfolding in beautiful, unexpected ways. He parked his bike on the corner of Pine and Fifth, the echo of his footsteps fading against the backdrop of city noise. The sun hung low in the sky, casting golden rays that warmed his skin. Today felt different, a shift in the wind, a whisper of change. Something told him he was on the brink of a moment he wouldn't forget. He took off his helmet, the familiar tang of oil and metal filled his senses. A thrill raced through him as he surveyed the street, a place where bustling pedestrians moved with purpose. He loved this corner of the city, its rhythm, its chaos. But something in the air felt electric, alive with the promise of the unexpected. As he stood there, leaning against his bike, he noticed a black luxury car glide silently to a stop at the curb. The polished surface glimmered like a beacon against the ordinary surroundings. A hush fell over the crowd, curiosity palpable as the chauffeur, impeccably dressed in a black suit, stepped out. With a practiced flourish, he opened the rear door and a gasp rippled through the onlookers. A figure emerged, stepping into the late afternoon glow. She was stunning, a tall woman with flowing hair that framed her face in soft waves. The sunlight danced around her, making her look ethereal, almost otherworldly. For a split second, time stood still, and it felt as though the entire world had shifted on its axis. He couldn't take his eyes off her. There was an undeniable magnetism in her presence, a ripple of energy that beckoned him closer. As she stepped out, a whisper of fabric fluttered around her legs, a dress that seemed to flow like water. People around him moved, but he stood frozen, rooted to the spot by an unseen force. Their eyes met for a brief, electrifying moment, passed between them. But just as quickly, she looked away, turning her focus to the busy street ahead. The chauffeur nodded at her before retreating to his post, and she took a step forward into the thrumming life of the city. He felt the urge to follow, to find out who she was and what brought her here, but fear held him back, chains made of self-doubt and uncertainty. She turned at the sound of his voice, a slight smile playing upon her lips, curiosity bright in her gaze. "I'm sorry to interrupt," he stammered, instantly aware of how clumsy he sounded. Her eyes sparkled, amusement dancing in them. He took a breath, feeling the energy shift between them, as if the world had narrowed down to just the two of them. "I just wanted to know what it feels like to step out of a luxury car and into the chaos of the city." She laughed lightly, the sound cascading over him like music. She looked around, the corners of her mouth turning upward. Her answer intrigued him. It was refreshing, raw, and honest. He found himself drawn to her energy, tangled in the web of her words. "So you don't just ride in style, you ride through the chaos too." "I'm Amelia," she replied, extending her hand, an invitation wrapped in intrigue. "And yes, I'm not one to shy away from a little adventure." He shook her hand, feeling a surge of warmth, that delightful jolt of connection. "I'm Jake, nice to meet you." Her laughter rang again, brightening the world around him. "You could say that, but there's something about this city that makes it all worthwhile. The pulse, the energy, it's intoxicating." "What about you?" "I'm just a guy who rides a bike," he replied with a shrug, trying to speak casually despite the underlying excitement. "It's my escape from the routine." Amelia's eyes lit up, reflecting back his enthusiasm. "There's beauty in that." "I agree," he said, feeling emboldened by her openness. The air felt charged between them, an invisible thread binding their souls. Just then he caught a glimpse of the chauffeur glancing at his watch, impatience flickering in his expression. A rush of anxiety washed over him. Would this connection be cut short? "I really enjoy this conversation, Amelia," he began, his heart pounding. "I know we just met, but would you want to grab a coffee sometime?" She hesitated for just a moment, eyes searching his. "I'd like that, Jake," she trailed off, glancing back at the chauffeur. Disappointment washed over him. There was something electrifying about their connection, and the idea of it slipping away made him feel like he was losing a part of himself. "Yes, I understand," he said slowly, the reality crashing down. Her smile returned, radiant and hopeful. "Of course," she said, pulling out her phone, her fingers dancing over the screen as she typed. She handed it over, and as their fingers brushed, an electric thrill shot through him. Catching her gaze again, he felt that magnetic pull. It whispered promises of future adventures, of moments yet to unfold. "Let's actually do this," he urged, his voice earnest. "I want to know what it feels like to step out of the box and into the adventure." Amelia's expression shifted to one of surprise, a hint of color rising to her cheeks. "I do," he replied, emboldened by sincerity. The chauffeur cleared his throat again, a subtle reminder that time was ticking. "I need to go now, but this has been incredible," she said, her voice layered with both excitement and regret. "I promise," he said, unable to hide the smile spreading across his face. She stepped back, her golden dress catching the sunlight like a shimmering wave as she turned to walk toward the waiting car. He felt a pang in his chest, but quickly replaced it with hope. their connection would be more than just fleeting. They'd have future adventures to explore. The door closed, and in an instant the car glided away, leaving him standing on the sidewalk, the world once again filled with noise. Yet he felt a sense of clarity, something fresh igniting within him. It was as though this spontaneous interaction had opened a door to a new chapter in his life. Days turned into weeks, but the memory of that moment stayed vivid in his mind. Each day he mounted his bike, the thrill of riding, breathing life into him. Yet he found himself checking his phone repeatedly, waiting for that text, the connection he hoped would blossom into something more. Finally, a week later, as he rode through the park, his phone buzzed in his pocket. Heart racing, he quickly pulled over and retrieved it. It was a message from Amelia. "Hey Jake, would love to grab that coffee you promised." A rush of excitement flooded through him. They exchanged several messages, quickly settling on a time that worked for both of them. As the day approached, he felt a storm of emotions building inside him: excitement, nervousness, and the thrill of possibility. It felt like waiting for the starting gun in a race, anticipation thrumming in his veins. When the day finally arrived, he found himself retracing his steps back to the same cafe where they first met, the familiar sights filling him with memories of their initial encounter. He arrived early, nerves bubbling up as he fretted over what to say. Eventually, he saw her walking towards him, a bright smile lighting up her face, radiating joy in her presence. They greeted each other with warmth, and he could see the spark still alive from their last encounter. She exclaimed, slipping into her seat across from him. "Of course I wouldn't miss it," he said, mirroring her smile. "It feels like fate, you know." "Absolutely," she replied, her eyes shining. As they spoke, the conversation flowed effortlessly. They shared laughs, stories, and insights, connecting on levels he never anticipated. It was exhilarating, each word a thread stitching them closer together. Ilya spoke of her life, of the pressures that came with her job, and how she craved moments of spontaneity to break the cycle. He listened with rapt attention, his heart swelling as she shared pieces of herself. "But I've realized something," she said, her tone shifting to one of seriousness. He felt the weight of her words, recognizing their shared journey, two souls navigating through life, searching for meaning. She asked, tilting her head as if inviting him to show his vulnerability. "What do you really see?" He paused, considering her question. "Honestly, I've spent so much time writing, avoiding the things that tie me down." The air around them crackled with understanding. It wasn't just conversation, it was exploration, unpacking thoughts, fears, hopes. He felt a bond forming, unbreakable and warm. As they sat there, the sun dipping lower, darkness began to creep in, the flickering lights of the cafe warming the surroundings. It felt cozy, like a cocoon of connection enveloping them both. She asked softly, her gaze locked on his. "Anything," he replied, sincerity coating his words. "Let's always keep seeking those adventures together, commit to breaking free not just separately but also as a team." He nodded, overwhelmed with emotion. "Absolutely." In that moment, surrounded by laughter and shared dreams, they sealed the promise with a look that spoke volumes, a connection that transcended words, an understanding that they had both been waiting for. Days turned to weeks, and with each passing adventure they shared, their bond deepened. They explored hidden corners of the city, each moment a thrill that drew them closer together. Riding beside each other felt like flying, as though time stood still and the ordinary melted away. But life has a way of throwing curveballs. One evening, as they walked along the bustling waterfront, Amelia's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, a wave of tension washing over her features. "I'm so sorry, Jake," she said, her voice quiet. He nodded, understanding the demands of life, but something in his gut twisted. Watching her stand slightly apart, phone to her ear, feeling the distance creep in, he realized how fearful he was of that phone call's potential to change everything. When she hung up, her expression was a mix of uncertainty and worry. "I have to go to a meeting, something urgent came up." His heart sank. "Of course," he said, masking his disappointment. "Let's reschedule," she suggested hurriedly, but he could see the weight on her shoulders. "Sure," he replied, trying to keep his spirits up. "We'll find another time." The smile she gave in return felt strained, but he held on to hope. They exchanged a quick embrace, both warm and fleeting. As she walked away, he felt that unshakable sense of loss creeping in again. For days after, he found himself lost in thought, replaying those fleeting moments over and over in his mind. He sent her messages, trying to maintain connection, but the responses became less frequent. Life had started to encroach upon their beautiful bubble. Weeks passed, and he found himself biking around the city, the wind against him feeling less exhilarating without her laughter lighting up the air. He felt adrift, the open roads stretching endlessly before him, but without a destination. Then one day, he decided to return to the cafe where it all began. As he parked his bike and stepped inside, a sense of nostalgia washed over him. He scanned the room, searching for a familiar face, hoping she might be there. But as his gaze fell on the empty table where they once sat, a twinge of longing punctured his heart. Was this where it ended? Had he made a mistake by reaching for something so beautiful that it had slipped through his fingers? Then, just as he turned to leave, he caught sight of a figure outside the window. It was her, Amelia, standing by her car, looking pensive and distant. He hesitated but felt a pull drawing him closer, an urge to bridge the gap between them. He rushed back outside, breathless, heart racing against his chest. He called, his voice cutting through the city noise. She turned, surprise washing over her features as their eyes met. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said, stepping toward him, an unexpected brightness flashing in her gaze. "I know things have been different," he began, struggling for words, "but I've missed our moments, our conversations." She took a breath, an unreadable expression crossing her face. "I've missed them too," she admitted, and in that moment the wall that had built up between them seemed to crack. "Then let's not let it go," he urged, a fresh wave of hope filling him. "This connection is worth fighting for." Amelia nodded slowly, a flicker of realization lighting up her expression. "You're right, I think life just got overwhelming for me, but I don't want to lose this." His heart soared, a powerful warmth replacing the lingering doubts. "I'm committed to this adventure, Amelia." As they stood there, surrounded by the bustle of busy streets and the lives of countless strangers, they felt a renewed sense of purpose. No more distractions, no more fears, just two souls ready to embrace the journey ahead. That day marked a turning point. They made a commitment to prioritize their connection, refusing to let life's chaos drown them out. Their adventures became rooted not just in spontaneous outings, but in a deep connection to hearts navigating through the unknown together. And with every bike ride, every glimmer of laughter, every profound conversation, they built something beautiful, an extraordinary love fueled by the raw energy of life. In the heart of chaos, they found peace. In the midst of ordinary, they crafted extraordinary. And he realized that life wasn't just about the moments he rode alone, it was about who he chose to ride alongside. And in that choice, the possibilities became endless. He parked his bike on the sidewalk, the sound of metal clinking as he secured it to a nearby fence. It was just another day for David, a Friday like any other, with the buzzing energy of the city wrapping around him like a warm blanket. The sun hung bright in the sky, casting a golden hue on the bustling streets of downtown. He wiped the sweat from his brow and adjusted his backpack, feeling the excitement of the weekend approaching. But as he stepped away from his bike, something unusual caught his eye. A black limousine glided to a halt just a few feet away. Its polished exterior gleamed under the sun, an obvious symbol of wealth and power. David paused, curiosity pulling him toward the spectacle unfolding before him. He watched as the chauffeur, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, stepped out and walked around to the back of the luxurious car. With a sense of anticipation, David leaned against a nearby bench, the scent of fresh coffee wafting through the air mixing with the smog of the city. Just then, the chauffeur opened the rear door, and time seemed to slow. A figure emerged, framed against the backdrop of a world moving too quickly, a woman stepping into the chaos with an elegance that stole the breath from his lungs. She wore a deep red dress that hugged her curves perfectly. The fabric flowed like liquid silk, accentuating her grace as she stepped out into the sun. Long waves of dark hair cascaded over her shoulders, catching the light in a mesmerizing dance. David felt a jolt in his chest, something primal awakened within him. He couldn't look away. As she stepped onto the pavement, the murmurs of the city faded, and for a moment it was just the two of them in a bubble of possibility. Her eyes scanned the street with a confidence that made his heart race. There was something magnetic about her, a glow that drew people in like moths to a flame. He could almost feel the gravitational pull between them. But as quickly as their eyes locked, she shifted her gaze, and reality rushed back in like a crashing wave. She moved toward the café across the street, and he felt adrenaline kick in, urging him to act before she faded into the crowd. What was holding him back? Fear, uncertainty, or was it the weight of the everyday that kept him anchored to the ground? David called, the word escaping his lips before he could think twice. His heart pounded as he stepped forward, urgency propelling him. She turned, surprise flashing across her face. There was a flicker of interest in her eyes, and he seized the moment. "I just wanted to say, you look amazing." A smile broke on her lips, transforming her momentarily serious demeanor into something warm and inviting. "Thank you," she replied, her voice melodic. "Right," he said, feeling an unexpected sense of freedom. "Flattery will get you everywhere," she teased, taking a step closer. "I'm Isabella." "David," he replied, the thrill of connection coursing through him. "So are you headed to some glamorous event?" "I guess you could say that," she replied, glancing back at the car as the chauffeur stood patiently. The word charity caught his attention. "That's noble of you," she nodded, her expression turning earnest. "It's important to give back." He nodded, impressed by her sincerity. There was depth behind her beauty, a story waiting to unfold. "Absolutely, I believe in that too," she said, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. Their conversation flowed smoothly, both of them stepping into a rhythm that felt so natural. For him, it was more than just small talk. It was as if they were peeling back layers, revealing pieces of each other's souls. But soon, the chauffeur broke the moment, clearing his throat. The warmth in Isabella's eyes shifted as she glanced at the waiting car. "I really should get going," she said reluctantly. "Of course," he replied, feeling a twinge of disappointment. "Would you mind if we exchanged numbers? I'd love to chat more if you're interested," she asked, her voice genuine. A smile crept onto his face. Definitely, they exchanged numbers, the simple gesture holding the weight of 1,000 potential moments. As she turned to leave, a pang of longing washed over him, the feeling of something slipping away too soon, but her demeanor suggested otherwise. She called back, a playful grin on her lips, sparking his hope anew. With one last look, she slipped into the back of the limousine. He stood there for a moment, his emotions swirling. Did that just happen? He could hardly believe it. As the limo pulled away, he felt a buoyant sense of possibility lift him off the ground. Tucking his phone into his pocket, he hopped back on his bike. This could be a turning point in his life, a moment where everything changed. Days passed like fragments of a dream. Each time he rode his bike, every corner felt charged with excitement, the lingering taste of Isabella's smile hanging in the air. He waited, heart racing, for her to reach out. Anticipation was intoxicating, a surge of energy propelling him through his mundane routine. Finally, a notification buzzed in his pocket. He pulled over, his heart pounding in his chest, and opened the message. It was her. "Hey David, I had a great time chatting." A rush of adrenaline surged through him. He quickly replied, suggesting a time and place. Within minutes, they had set a date, and he couldn't help the grin that spread across his face. When he arrived at the cafe a few days later, his heart raced. Would this encounter carry the same magic? Would they dive deeper into the connection that felt like a spark igniting a wildfire? He looked for her, scanning the room filled with laughter, clinking cups, and the rich scent of coffee. And then he saw her, Isabella, radiant in a floral dress, sitting at a cozy corner table. She caught his eye and waved, her face lighting up like a beacon. She exclaimed, standing to greet him with open arms. They embraced, and he felt as if he had known her for years. He replied, settling into a chair across from her. "Thank you, you clean up pretty well yourself," she laughed. They dove right into conversation, laughter flowing like a current, wrapping around them as they shared more stories. David spoke about his job, the challenges he faced, and the small joys that fueled him. Isabella opened up about her passion for charity work, sharing stories of the people she met and the impact she hoped to make. In those moments, time bent and twisted, creating a cocoon where only they existed. They bounced ideas off each other, dreams, hopes, fears, each word another thread weaving them closer together. With every shared laugh, he felt the connection deepening, like roots digging into fertile soil. But suddenly, a shadow crossed her face. "You know, life isn't always easy," she said, her gaze drifting momentarily. "I sometimes struggle to balance everything, a demanding job, expectations." David felt a flicker of understanding. "I know what you mean. Sometimes it feels like the weight of the world is on your shoulders, but I think those struggles shape us." Her eyes met his again, an unspoken acknowledgement hanging in the air. Exactly. As they talked, David recognized something profound. Here was a woman willing to peel back the layers, to dive deeper into real conversations, a rarity in a world filled with superficial interactions. Their rhythm felt like a well-rehearsed symphony, the harmony soothing yet exhilarating. The cafe hummed with activity around them, but they were lost in their universe where authentic connections flourished. Hours flew by seamlessly, yet neither wanted the conversation to end. The world outside faded, becoming merely background music to their symphony. Eventually, reality crept back in. The sun cast long shadows and Isabella's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, a hint of anxiety crossing her features. "I have a meeting soon," she confessed, biting her lip. "Of course," he replied, trying to mask the twinge of disappointment. "But I'd love to see you again, David," she said, her voice sincere. "This has been incredible." His heart soared, hope washing over him like a wave. "Absolutely," she replied, her eyes gleaming with enthusiasm. After exchanging plans, the moment finally arrived for her to leave. He walked her to the door, savoring every second. As they stepped outside, the world felt electric once more, and then something shifted. As they walked, Isabella froze, her gaze locked onto something behind him. David turned to find two men observing them, faces shrouded in shadows. The air thickened with tension, and everything around them fell silent. He asked, a sliver of concern creeping in. "Yeah, she hesitated, her voice trailing off. The men approached, their demeanor menacing, and an instinct screamed in his mind, "Protect her." Whispers filled the air, and one of the men stepped closer. "Isabella." A chill ran down David's spine. He demanded, instinctively placing himself in front of her. The men exchanged glances, their intentions unclear, but the situation felt charged with danger. "Stay out of this, kid," one of them snarled, focusing back on Isabella. "No." Isabella's voice rang out with fierce determination, but David could see the fear lurking behind her bravado. His heart raced, adrenaline pumping through him. He had just met this woman, yet he felt an overwhelming need to protect her. "I think you should leave her alone," he said, trying to sound braver than he felt. The tension hung thick in the air as the strangers regarded him with disdain. "Don't know who you're messing with," one of them said, stepping forward, a glint of menace hidden beneath the bravado. But before he could say another word, the soft chime of a bell rang in the background and a police car pulled up nearby. The sight seemed to shift the atmosphere instantly. "Let her go," the officer commanded, stepping out of the car. The men exchanged quick glances, some of their bravado fading. In an instant, they bolted, retreating into the shadows as if they had never been there at all. David felt the weight of relief wash over him. Turns out life just became more than a series of chances. It had now morphed into a thrilling escapade, a battle fought in the nameless and faceless twilight of the city. He asked Isabella, urgency in his voice as he turned to face her, worry etched in his features. "I think so," she breathed, her voice shaky. That was, a rush of adrenaline surged through him as he stepped closer, concern knitting their emotions together. "You want me to walk you to your car?" "Yes, please," she replied, her eyes wide with lingering shock. As they walked together toward her car, he couldn't shake the feeling of how close he had come to losing something beautiful. He asked as they approached the vehicle. Isabella hesitated, the weight of her revelation hanging in the air. "Just some people from my past, nothing I haven't dealt with before but that," David pressed, feeling the need to ensure her safety. "Yeah," she replied, though there was a hint of vulnerability hidden in her voice. "I've just learned the hard way that not everyone is who they seem." "I get that," he said gently, feeling an unspoken bond of understanding wrap around them. "But you're safe now, and I want you to know, whatever happens, I'm in your corner." As she opened the door to her car, a flicker of gratitude crossed her face. "Thank you, David." Before she got in, she leaned in, her hand gently brushing against his arm. "This isn't the end, I promise we'll connect again." He felt a warmth spread through him as they shared a moment of vulnerability. "We will," he promised softly. With a final smile, she slipped into her car and drove away, leaving him standing there, heart racing. The remnants of the encounter reverberated through him, an exhilarating mixture of fear, relief, and connection. As he rode home that night, his thoughts whirled. Life, he realized, isn't just a series of chance encounters. It's a tapestry woven from connections, experiences, and the unexpected. And with every twist and turn, he knew that the path ahead would be filled with adventure, especially alongside Isabella. He could hardly wait for their next encounter, the next chapter in a story that was just beginning to unfold. As he cycled through the night, the city lights twinkling like stars, he embraced the uncertainty, ready for whatever awaited him in the journey ahead. He parked his bike on the corner of 5th and Main, the soft clink of his bell echoing off the nearby storefronts. The sun was dropping low in the sky, painting everything in shades of orange and gold. It was that time of day when the world felt alive, every voice in the bustling city carrying a story, a secret, or a dream. For Alex, today felt different, a tingling sensation that thrummed beneath the surface as he stepped off his bike. As he locked it up, he glanced over to the cafe across the street, his favorite spot. The bustling atmosphere was a mix of laughter, the clatter of cups, and the rich aroma of coffee wafting through the air. Just as he was about to head over, something extraordinary caught his eye. A sleek black limousine pulled up to the curb, the engine purring like a well-tuned machine. The world seemed to slow down as a tall, impeccably dressed chauffeur stepped out. He adjusted his tie, a picture of professionalism, and approached the back door with an elegant flair. In that moment, Alex felt a magnetic pull-in urge to witness whatever drama was about to unfold. The chauffeur opened the door with a soft click and a hush fell over the crowd. Out stepped a woman. She was stunning, framed by the golden light of the sunset as if the world around was her spotlight. The sunlight danced off her long, dark hair, draping around her shoulders. She wore a fitted, deep green dress that accentuated her every curve, flowing like silk as she stepped onto the pavement. The people around him seemed to forget their own lives, captivated by this moment. She moved with a grace that made him forget to breathe, and just like that, their eyes met. For a fleeting moment, there was a spark, an unspoken connection that passed between them like a charged current. But life has a way of intruding on moments that feel too good to be true. As quick as the connection ignited, she turned, glancing quickly at the cafe as if checking the time. Anxiety flickered in her eyes, and she hurried toward the entrance. She paused, turning just slightly, her curiosity piqued. "I'm sorry," he said, feeling the words tumble from his lips. Her face softened into a smile, a genuine warmth blooming in her expression. "Thank you," she replied. "I'm just trying to get to my event on time." Nearby pedestrians resumed their chatter, the moment slipping into the background, but for him, time felt suspended. He asked, stepping a bit closer, feeling boldness rise within him. "A charity gala," she said, glancing at the entrance where the light poured out like a welcoming embrace. "Fancy is good," he said, keeping his tone light. She hesitated, her eyes reflecting depth and sincerity. "Yes, actually, it's for a local nonprofit that helps homeless families find permanent housing." His heart swelled with admiration. "That's amazing. It's so easy to get wrapped up in our own lives." "Thank you," she smiled, her demeanor warm and open. "And what about you?" "I ride a bike and work in marketing," he said, "but honestly, I love just being out here, experiencing life." As they spoke, there was a seamless rhythm, a spark of chemistry igniting between them. He felt drawn in as if they were the only two people in the world. But once again, the chauffeur's voice cut through the connection. "Madam, we really should be going," he said, glancing at her with urgency. Reality crashed back in. She hesitated, glancing at the cafe, then back at Alex, an internal battle playing out in her eyes. "I know," she said, clearly torn, "but I don't want this to end." The unexpected request made his heart race. Yes, he stammered, pulling out his phone. She quickly typed in her number, their fingers brushing, sending a jolt of electricity through him. He felt a surge of hope as they exchanged smiles filled with the promise of future conversations. Before he knew it, she was swept away, sliding into the back of the limo as it glided smoothly away from the curb. He stood there, breathless, the world around him spinning. Did that truly just happen? The thrill of a connection lingered, wrapping around him like a warm embrace. Days passed with each moment stretching into eternity. He pedaled through the city, a whirl of excitement and doubt swirling inside him. He kept glancing at his phone, willing it to buzz with the message he craved. Finally, one afternoon, as he was riding through the park, the notification chimed. His heart raced as he pulled over, opening the message with jittery fingers. "Hey Alex, it's Isabella. I had a great time chatting." A smile burst across his face. He quickly replied, suggesting a time and place. They confirmed plans, and suddenly the hours unfurled before him like a red carpet leading up to something extraordinary. On the day of their coffee date, he arrived early, excitement coursing through his veins. The cafe was buzzing with energy, the air thick with the rich aroma of brewing coffee. He looked around, anxiety bubbling beneath the surface as he awaited her arrival. And then he saw her, Isabella, walking towards him with that same magnetic energy radiating all around her. She wore a simple white blouse paired with jeans, effortless yet elegant, and his heart skipped a beat. She said, her smile brightening the room as she settled into the chair across from him. "Hi, you look amazing," he said, the compliment tumbling out naturally. "Thank you, you look pretty good yourself," she replied, leaning in slightly, her eyes shimmering. Their conversation flowed, feeling more comfortable than ever. There was laughter, teasing, and a mutual understanding that felt profound. They shared stories, digs at life, and dreams. Alex learned about her aspirations to start a nonprofit of her own, a venture fueled by passion. As the minutes turned into hours, he couldn't help but feel how this was so far removed from the mundane reality he was used to. With every laugh, every shared glance, the world around them faded into a blur. It was just him and her, connecting on levels he had always yearned for. But as they sipped their drinks, a flicker of concern crossed her face. "You know, I sometimes feel this pressure, the expectation to succeed, to be perfect." Alex nodded, empathizing deeply. "I get that. We're all taught to chase after success, but the pressure can become suffocating." Their eyes locked, an understanding silence passing between them. In that moment, it was clear they were both searching for something deeper in life, a connection that fueled their souls rather than just their ambitions. Just then, Isabella's phone buzzed, breaking the moment like a glass hitting the hard ground. She glanced at it, her expression shifting from open warmth to something more anxious. "I need to take this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. David felt a pit form in his stomach as she stepped aside, her demeanor suddenly distant. As he waited, he stared out the window, the world bustling by outside car horns, laughing children, and the vibrant life of the city continuing on without him. When she returned, she looked unsettled. "I'm really sorry," she said, her face clouded with worry. "I didn't expect that call. It was work, and," he asked, the concern creeping into his voice. "I'm fine, just dealing with some unexpected shifts," she replied, but there was a hint of uncertainty in her eyes. "Look, if you need to go, I'll understand," he said gently. "No," she said, shaking her head, determination pushing through the uncertainty. Their conversation resumed, but the atmosphere shifted ever so slightly, the bubble of intimacy now colored with vulnerability. They continued sharing pieces of their lives, but both could feel the shadows creeping in. Just as he thought they were settling back into the rhythm, the same men from their first meeting crossed his mind, the ones who had confronted Isabella outside the cafe. He shoved the thought aside, unwilling to let external factors creep in. As they wrapped up, the waiter dropped off the bill, and an unexpected weight settled over them like a storm cloud. "So, this was incredible," Isabella said, her voice low. "Absolutely," he replied, trying to ignore the anxiety prickling at the back of his mind. As they walked out of the cafe, he could feel her tension rising, the air thick with unspoken words. He asked carefully, concern squeezing his heart. Isabella stopped, her expression somber. "I don't know if it is. Changes are coming in my life, and I want to make sure I'm ready for them." "Look, nothing worth having comes easy," he said softly, meeting her gaze. "Whatever you're dealing with, I'm here." Their eyes locked, and he saw her mask of worry begin to crack. She asked slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Of course," he said, his words firm and sincere. She reached for his hand, and in that moment, the weight between them shifted, unspoken fears dissolving under the warmth of connection. A flicker of hope sparked in her eyes. "I'd like to believe that." "Absolutely," he replied, feeling an undeniable charge in the air, an infectious optimism swirling around them like a gentle breeze. Days turned into weeks, filled with laughter and shared adventures. They explored the city, discovering hidden gems and uncovering pieces of themselves in the process. Whether cycling through the park or walking hand in hand along the waterfront, each moment felt tethered to something unbreakable. Just as they began to settle into their newfound connection, the storm clouds of life loomed ominously. One evening, as they strolled through a bustling market, the same men appeared again, their dark silhouettes cutting through the lively crowd. David's heart raced as he instinctively moved closer to Isabella, protective instincts surging to the surface. "Let's go," he urged, his voice low. "Wait," Isabella said hesitantly, as if she wanted to confront her past. "No, this is not worth it," he said, resolute. But before they could react, the men approached, their expressions cloaked in shadows. "Isabella," one of them said, his voice dripping with demand and menace. She stiffened, fear flashing in her eyes. She exclaimed, pulling away from David protectively. "You don't have a choice," the man sneered, taking a step closer, intimidating and relentless. David stepped in front of her, adrenaline surging as he prepared to defend her. He said, his voice steady. In that moment, the world around them condensed, the sounds of the market fading into the background. Awareness heightened, every heartbeat, every breath felt amplified. "Kid, you have no idea who you're messing with," the man warned, his voice low and menacing. But just as the tension reached a breaking point, a police car pulled up, lights flashing. The officer shouted, jumping out of the vehicle with authority. The men's bravado faltered, and they exchanged quick glances. Without a word, they retreated, disappearing into the swirling chaos of the market. David felt relief wash over him, the breath he was holding finally escaping his lungs. He turned to Isabella, concern etching his features. "Yeah," she said slowly, her voice shaky. "I didn't expect that. You're safe now," he whispered, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. With trembling fingers, she reached out and squeezed his hand. "Thank you for standing up for me." They stood there for a moment, wrapped in a cocoon of silence as the world buzzed around them. In that instant, amidst the chaos of life swirling about them, they found strength in their bond, a powerful connection that had transcended fear. As days passed and the storm clouds dispersed, they discovered a new rhythm, one woven together with laughter, understanding, and growth. Each shared adventure deepened their connection, revealing new layers to their relationship. Alex found himself falling more for Isabella with every moment shared, but he knew the looming shadows of her past were fragile, and sometimes fear crept back in like an unwelcome guest. One evening, as they sat on a park bench watching the sunset, the golden light wrapping around them like a warm embrace, he gently took her hand. "Isabella," he began, "I think it's important to talk about your past." She let out a sigh, tears shimmering in her eyes. "You're right, I've been avoiding it." He leaned closer, his voice calm and inviting. "I'm here." With a deep breath, she began. Those men, they are part of a life I thought I left behind." He listened intently, every word weighing on his heart. "You aren't that person anymore," he reassured her. "You've changed, and people can't take that away from you." Her eyes met his, vulnerability shining through. "It's just hard to believe sometimes." "You're not alone," he replied, squeezing her hand gently. As she remained silent, absorbing his words, Alex felt a spark ignite within him. The very reason he had taken a leap to connect with Isabella felt reaffirmed this was not just a relationship, it was a chance to grow, to be stronger together. Days turned into weeks, and as shadows receded, an unbreakable bond formed between them. They danced through life, weaving stories filled with laughter, adventure, and deep discussions. Their journey expanded beyond the confines of their individual struggles, blossoming into a partnership that ignited new dreams. But just when things felt like they reached their peak, the shadows returned. One evening, as they strolled through downtown, an unexpected chill swept through the air. Suddenly, whispers of a familiar darkness crept back in as the notorious men emerged from the shadows once more. "Isabella," one of them called out, a predatory grin spreading across his face. Panic surged through Alex as he instinctively positioned himself in front of Isabella, protectiveness igniting within him. He shouted, ready to defend her with everything in him. The man taunted, stepping closer, his confidence fueled by the presence of his companions. But just then, the adrenaline surged through the atmosphere. Alex's heart raced as he noticed the officer from before, standing nearby, observing from the shadows. Alex shouted, determination flooding through him. In an unexpected turn, the officer stepped forward, authority radiating from him. "This is your last chance," he warned, eyes sharp and steady. The men hesitated, the atmosphere shifting as they realized the stakes had risen. "We'll be watching you, Isabella," the leader hissed before retreating into the night. Relief washed over Alex, and he turned to Isabella, fear coursing through him. She gasped, clearly shaken but determined. "But I won't let them control my life anymore." In that moment, vulnerability shielded her instead of weakness, and undeniable strength formed from realizing they were both ready to confront the past together. And with every challenge ahead, they would stand side by side, hand in hand, facing whatever the future held. As they stepped out into the new dawn, the cycle of fear transformed into an unbreakable bond. Facing the unknown together became their strength. Through trials and triumphs, they learned that life isn't just about navigating the shadows. It's about embracing the light that exists when you have someone by your side. Together, they cycled through life, carrying their stories like banners, each moment a testament to their resilience. And as they soared into the future, they knew painting their own path was worth every challenge along the way. He parked his bike just outside the bustling café, the engine sighing as he turned it off. Greg stepped off and took a moment to breathe in the mingled scents of coffee brewing and fresh pastries. The late morning sun shone brightly, casting shadows that danced along the pavement. He felt good today, the kind of day that promised something unexpected. As he secured his bike, he glanced around, soaking in the city's energy. Everyone seemed absorbed in their own worlds, people chattering, children laughing, and the rhythmic clink of cups being set on tables. But something pulled his attention away from the ordinary. A sleek black car rolled up to the curb, its shiny surface glinting in the sun. The engine purred softly, and for a moment it felt like the world paused to notice. A finely dressed chauffeur emerged from the driver's seat, adjusting his cufflinks as if prepared for an event that mattered. With a smooth motion, he made his way to the back door, opening it with a flourish. A hush fell over the scene. Greg felt a tingling anticipation as he leaned against his bike, his eyes glued to the unfolding moment. And then she stepped out, a woman like no other, tall, poised, her presence commanding attention. She wore an elegant navy dress that flattered her figure, and her long hair cascaded in soft waves down her back. The sun caught the highlights, creating an almost ethereal glow around her. Time slowed, and Greg experienced a sense of awe, as if he were witnessing something extraordinary. As she stood momentarily surveying the scene, their gazes met. For a brief moment, everything around them faded into nothingness. It was just the two of them. Her eyes sparkled with warmth and mystery, igniting something inside him that he didn't even know existed. But like a dream dissolving at dawn, she turned away and gracefully walked toward the cafe. His heart raced, a mixture of excitement and fear flooding in. Could he let this moment slip away? He hesitated, doubts racing through his mind, but something deep inside urged him forward. She paused, turning back to him with a hint of surprise. "I just wanted to say, you look incredible," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. The corner of her mouth curved upward, and Greg noticed the way her expression softened. "Thank you, I'm Greg," he added, stepping closer, driven by an unexpected urge to connect. "I'm on my way to a charity event," she replied, glancing toward the cafe. "It's a gala to raise funds for local art initiatives." He could see her nerves reflected in her eyes, the flicker of vulnerability beneath her confident exterior. "Art is so important," he said, his pulse quickening. Her face lit up. Exactly. He quickly felt a connection, like pieces of a puzzle falling into place. "That's amazing. I work in marketing, but I always feel drawn to art in some way." As they spoke, the world around them faded into the background. Cars honked, people chatted, the scent of coffee wafted through the air. It was just the two of them, lost in a moment that felt both spontaneous and timeless. But the moment was suddenly interrupted when the chauffeur cleared his throat, a look of impatience etched in his expression. Her gaze flickered between him and the waiting car. She said, her voice trailing off. "Me too," he replied. "Can I get your number?" A hint of surprise crossed her face, followed by a warm smile. "Sure." As she handed it to him, their fingers brushed against each other, sending an unexpected thrill through his body. There was a chemistry between them, something undeniably electric. "Let's make this happen," she said, her eyes sparkling in the sunlight. With one last lingering look, she turned and walked away, her grace making it look effortless. Greg stood there, watching the limousine pull away, trying to catch his breath. Did that really just happen? A mix of exhilaration and disbelief swirled within him, and he couldn't help but smile. Days turned into a blur as he navigated through his routine. He found himself replaying that moment over and over in his head, her laughter, the way her eyes lit up when she talked about her passion for art. Each time he rode his bike, he felt a spark of anticipation, waiting for her to reach out. Finally, as he was returning home one evening, his phone buzzed in his pocket. Heart racing, he pulled it out. There it was, a message from her. "Hey, it's Isabella." A grin spread across his face. He quickly typed back, suggesting a time that worked for him. The excitement bounced around inside him as he pressed send, imagining what their next encounter would be like. When the day arrived, he waited outside the cafe, feeling a blend of nerves and anticipation. The sun peeked through the clouds, warm against his skin as he paced back and forth. Would they have the same connection? What if things felt different? But when he saw her approach, the sight of Isabella standing there brought everything into sharp focus. She was radiant, wearing light jeans and a soft cream sweater. The way her smile lit up her face made his heart race. She greeted him, her voice bright and genuine. He replied, unable to hide his enthusiasm. "Thanks," she said, her eyes glistening. As they walked inside, the lively atmosphere buzzed around them. They settled into a cozy corner, and once again it was as if they were in their own little world. "So tell me," he began, eager to know more about her. She leaned in, enthusiasm creeping back into her voice. "I love working with youth programs, using art as a way to express emotions and build community. It's the most rewarding feeling to watch them grow." Greg felt an overwhelming admiration for her commitment. "That sounds incredible." They exchanged stories, laughter bubbling up naturally between them as they sank deeper into conversation. Time slipped by unnoticed, the noise of the cafe becoming a comforting backdrop to their rhythm. But as they continued to talk, he noticed a flicker of uncertainty crossing her face. "I have to be honest," she said, her voice lowering. "I'm trying to figure out how to balance my passions with the rest of my life." He asked gently, wanting her to share her burden. Just with my career path and the expectations of my family, she explained, vulnerability threading through her words. They want me to pursue something more traditional, but my heart lies in the arts. I get that, he said, feeling the weight of her words. Chasing your passion can be daunting, especially with the pressures of society. Their eyes met, and in that moment he understood the unspoken struggle that so many face, the battle between following one's heart and conforming to expectations. As they talked about their dreams, fears, and aspirations, an unbreakable bond started forming between them. It was profound, a connection that felt rare in a world filled with distractions. You know, she said with a soft smile, I'm so glad we met. Absolutely, he replied, his heart swelling. But just as they leaned deeper into the conversation, Greg's eyes caught a shadow passing by the window. It sent a chill down his spine. A group of men, unfamiliar faces moved through the cafe, their presence unsettling. Something about their demeanor felt off. Greg could sense the atmosphere shift, a tension creeping in. Isabella asked, noticing his distraction. Yeah, he replied, forcing a smile, but the unease lingered. Just a weird vibe. As they resumed their conversation, Greg couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. He pushed it aside, reminding himself to stay present. Their connection was worth fighting for, and he didn't want outside influences to disrupt it. But the moment shattered when one of the men drew closer, leaning against their table. He sneered, a hint of malice in his voice. She retorted, her gaze brave but wary. Greg felt anger bubble inside him, protective instincts soaring. Hey, back off, he said firmly, his heart pounding. The situation escalated, the other patrons falling silent as eyes turned their way. The man smirked, clearly not intimidated. Leave her alone, Greg commanded, his voice unwavering as adrenaline coursed through him. Don't make this worse, she warned, glancing at him, a mix of fear and determination in her expression. Just as tension reached its peak, the cafe manager stepped in and the mood shifted again. Sir, you need to leave, he said firmly, pointing toward the exit. With a scowl, the man pulled back, but not without delivering a final threat. We'll be watching Isabella. When they left, silence settled like a heavy blanket. Isabella's expression was a mix of fear and resilience. I thought I had put that behind me, she murmured, her voice trembling slightly. You are not alone, Greg said softly, his protective instincts still on high alert. When they left the cafe, Greg felt more determined than ever to be her support. The world could be dark and chaotic, but he wanted to be the light for her, a shield against the shadows that threatened to dull her spirit. In the days that followed, they faced the reality of her past together. Greg walked with her through the turmoil, attending each moment with grace and empathy, and she found strength in their connection. The bond continued to deepen as they met with local mentors in the arts community and explored avenues for Isabella to advocate for her passions while navigating her challenges. One afternoon, as they stood on the banks of the river, watching the water shimmer beneath the sun, Isabella turned to Greg, her voice steady. What you've done for me means the world. I didn't know how much I needed you either, he admitted, the sincerity in his eyes grounding her. That moment she took his hand, and they both understood that they were no longer just two strangers, they were partners in every sense of the word. Their journey wasn't just about overcoming obstacles, it was about lifting each other to new heights, creating a life fueled by passion. Days turned to weeks, and together they blossomed like flowers reaching for the sun. Isabella's confidence flourished, stepping further into her role as an advocate, her artistry breaking barriers, igniting hope in the community. But just as they felt the warmth of new beginnings, the past resurfaced once more. One evening, as they walked through a local gallery showcasing Isabella's work, she caught a glimpse of someone from her past. There in the corner stood the same man who had confronted them weeks before, the one who had haunted her thoughts. Panic surged through Isabella and she froze, fear washing over her like a tidal wave. Greg asked, noticing her expression. She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. No. Listen to me, he said firmly, grasping her shoulders gently. You're stronger than you think, she pleaded, her eyes filled with uncertainty. Of course, he replied, his heart breaking at her distress. As they stepped outside, the cool evening air wrapped around them like a protective shroud. I'm so sorry, Greg, she said, anguish coloring her tone. Hey, he said softly, pulling her close. You are not defined by your past. It's part of your journey, but it doesn't dictate where you're headed. Looking into his eyes, she felt a flicker of hope. In that moment, they reaffirmed their bond, choosing to face the darkness together. As they walked hand in hand, the river glimmered in the moonlight, a symbol of their journey constant, yet ever-changing. They understood that life was not simply a path laid before them. It was a dance between shadows and light, an exploration of self through connection. In the days that followed, their partnership deepened, built on trust, vulnerability, and unwavering support. They encouraged each other to embrace their passions, celebrating victories both big and small. With every challenge, Greg discovered a fire igniting in himself. Isabella fueled his dreams, grounding him in a way he never expected. And as his spirit soared, he helped her reclaim hers, reminding her of the beauty she brought to the world. Finally, when the day arrived for Isabella's charity gala, the air buzzed with anticipation. They stood together backstage, the atmosphere electric as she prepared to present her work to the community. he asked, watching her adjust her jacket with a newfound confidence. I am now, she said, glancing up at him, heart swelling. And as she stepped onto the stage, the spotlight shining bright, Greg felt a rush of pride. She was no longer just the girl from the cafe. She was a force of nature, igniting fires in others, bringing life to dreams through the arts. Through every uncertainty, they had forged a path together, navigating the chaos of life hand in hand. And in that moment, with the crowd erupting in applause for Isabella, he knew they had overcome what they once thought was insurmountable. Through the trials of fear, connection blossomed, a love rooted in understanding, empathy, and raw honesty. Together, they had weathered the storms of the past, emerging stronger, ready to shine in their own unique light. As the evening drew to a close, Greg took Isabella's hand, their fingers intertwined, and as they stepped out into the city streets, it was clear they were not just two individuals navigating the chaos. They were partners creating their own adventure, ready to face whatever the future held, side by side. And in the heart of that bustling city, surrounded by the sounds of life, they knew this was just the beginning of their story. He parked his bike against the slick metal railing, the sound of the kickstand clicking into place echoing in the stillness around him. The warmth of the sun kissed his skin, but there was a chill in the air that tingled at the back of his neck. Today felt different, the kind of day that hinted at something extraordinary lurking just beneath the surface of the ordinary. As he stood there, catching his breath after the ride, he noticed a sleek black car glide silently to a stop nearby. The kind of car that whispered wealth and power, a beast of polished metal that seemed to command attention. He leaned against the railing, curiosity pulling him in like gravity, drawing a comet closer to the sun. A chauffeur stepped out, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit. He looked sharp, his posture proud, and he moved toward the rear door with a confidence that ignited a flutter of excitement in Greg's chest. He felt an inexplicable urge to witness whatever drama was about to unfold. With a smooth motion, the chauffeur opened the door and a hush fell over the street, a stillness that felt almost sacred. And then she stepped out. She was a vision, tall and elegant. Her presence mesmerized everyone around her. She wore a brilliant red dress that flowed like a cascade of liquid silk, accentuating every curve. Her dark hair caught the sunlight, creating an aura around her that made her look utterly captivating. Time itself seemed to bend as she emerged, the world fading away until it was just the two of them locked in a moment filled with promise. Greg's heart raced. Their eyes met, and he felt an electric charge surge between them, a spark that ignited something deep within him. But in an instant, she turned her gaze away, gliding past him toward the cafe. The moment shattered, leaving him breathless. Could he let this opportunity slip away? His voice crackled with urgency. She paused, turning slightly, surprise flickering across her face. The words flew out before he could stop them, raw and unfiltered. Her smile bloomed like a flower, warming him instantly. Thank you. Realizing he had a brief window to make an impression, he took a step closer, feeling the rush of adrenaline. I'm headed to a charity gala, she replied, glancing toward the cafe as if weighing her decision. Just a little something I'm involved in. There was something striking about her sincerity that made his heart swell. That's incredible. Art education is so important. She looked at him, eyes lighting up with interest. Exactly. It's easy to think about our own lives, but helping others can make a real difference. Yes, absolutely, Greg said, feeling the tide of connection swell. I work at a local nonprofit myself. As they spoke, the world seemed to fall away again, creating a bubble for them amidst the city's chaos. Every word exchanged deepened the bond forming between them. For a moment, he forgot the weight of the day, the daily grind of life, lost in the flow of genuine conversation. But just then, the chauffeur broke the spell with an authoritative cough, looking at his watch with urgency. Her expression flickered between regret and excitement. I know, she said, reluctance etched across her features, but I truly enjoyed this conversation. Greg's heart leaped. He blurted, fumbling for his phone. As she typed in her number, their fingers brushed, sending a jolt of electricity through him. I'll text you, she said, her eyes glimmering with promise. With one last lingering look, she slipped into the back of the limousine, and it glided away into the sea of city sounds. He stood there, breathless, feeling a mix of exhilaration and disbelief. Could that really have just happened? Days passed, but each moment stretched into an eternity. Greg found himself caught in a cycle of anticipation, replaying their brief encounter in his mind like a favorite film. Every ride on his bike felt charged, infused with a hope that lingered at the edge of his consciousness. Finally, a week later, while pedaling through the park, his phone buzzed. Heart racing, he pulled over, fingers trembling as he opened the message. It was her. Hey, it's Isabella. A grin spread across his face, laughter bubbling up inside him. He quickly replied, suggesting a time and place, barely able to contain his excitement. The day arrived, and the sun hung high in the sky, bathing everything in golden light. As he approached the cafe they had agreed upon, he felt a rush of nerves mixed with elation. Would the chemistry match the first encounter? Would it be any different now? When he stepped inside, he spotted her immediately. Isabella was seated at a corner table, wearing a simple yet elegant outfit, her smile shining brighter than ever. She waved enthusiastically, and his heart soared. she exclaimed as he approached. He replied, his enthusiasm contagious. Thanks. So do you, she said, motioning for him to sit. As they settled in, the world around them faded again just like before. Their conversation flowed effortlessly. They shared their passions, dreams, and even a few personal struggles. Time melted away as they lost themselves in the rhythm of laughter and connection. Isabella spoke of her work in the arts, her eyes lighting up with every word, and Greg couldn't help but admire her passion. Art can transform lives, she said passionately. Changes how people see the world. I couldn't agree more, Greg replied, feeling drawn deeper into her world. What you're doing is incredible. But as they chatted, he couldn't shake the feeling that something lingered just below the surface. Her laughter held a hint of sadness, each smile concealed layers that hadn't been peeled back yet. As the day wore on, Isabella's phone buzzed on the table and the moment froze. She glanced at it, her mood shifting as her expression darkened slightly. I should take this, she said softly, stepping away. Watching her walk away, Greg felt a pang of unease. What was happening beneath that radiant exterior? He leaned back in his chair, not twisting in his stomach. When she returned just moments later, her face was pale, a shadow hanging over her. Sorry about that, she murmured. The vibe had changed, and Greg could sense the weight of her thoughts pressing down on her. Are you okay? You seem worried, he asked gently. She let out a sigh, her heart clearly heavy. It's just that my past has a way of creeping back in. I thought I was ready to move on, but the vulnerability in her eyes struck him deep, piercing through the excitement of their earlier conversation. You don't have to go through this alone, he said carefully. Her gaze softened, and even amidst the swirl of confusion and anxiety, there was a flicker of gratitude. I appreciate that. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the cafe, Greg leaned forward. Want to tell me about it? Taking a deep breath, she searched for the right words. I've had encounters with people from my past who, let's say they weren't the best influences. His heart raced as he studied her, wanting to absorb every word, wanting to share her burden. Whatever you're facing, we can figure it out together. At that moment, an unspoken bond formed, tethering their hearts in a way he hadn't anticipated. But just as they began to explore this new depth of connection, the atmosphere shifted again. The door to the cafe swung open, a sudden gust of air breezing through, and Greg turned automatically. Standing there were the very men he had noticed before. Shadows once again crept among their laughter, their faces unmistakable. Isabella, one of the men, called out, a sneer on his lips. Panic surged through her. Greg's protective instincts kicked in, and before he could fully process the situation, he stood up, placing himself between her and them. You need to leave her alone, he said forcefully. The tension rippled through the cafe, all eyes focusing on the confrontation. The man chuckled darkly. Whatever you're selling, she's not interested. Greg shot back, his voice steady, but the knot in his stomach tightened. Let's see how long she can pretend she's free from her past, the man taunted, stepping forward, determination etched in his features. With a speed that caught everyone off guard, Isabella stepped beside Greg, strength radiating from her. I won't live in fear anymore. The men exchanged glances, confusion clouding their expressions, and in that moment something shifted in the air, the courage pulling them both together. Just then, the cafe manager rushed over, fists clenched. You need to leave, he warned, authority in his voice. The men hesitated, and with an unsettling smirk, the leader turned to leave. We'll be watching, Isabella. As they walked away, the tension dissipated, but the damage was done. Greg felt the adrenaline still coursing through his veins, the weight of what they just faced heavy upon them. He asked, concern etched on his face as he turned to Isabella. I will be, she whispered, but there was a fragility in her voice that made his heart ache. Always, he replied, trying to bolster her confidence. They left the cafe that day, the sunlight fading around them as they stepped out into an uncertain world. But in that moment, they forged a connection stronger than the shadows that lingered behind them. As they walked side by side, Greg felt the spirit between them spark an unbreakable bond forming that whispered promises of courageous tomorrows. Little did they know the climax was only beginning. The path ahead would be riddled with choices, challenges, and a whirlwind of emotions, testing the very foundation of what they had just built together. The journey was only just starting, and every heart-stopping moment would redefine them both. Standing united, they couldn't shake the feeling that life had thrown them into something bigger than they could imagine. Together, they would have to fight for their dreams, face their fears, and together, they would change everything.